This is the story of the biggest undercover sting in the history of Africa and the extraordinary man who carried it off.
Doesn't matter who you are, wherever you are hiding, I come with my cameras.
Some of the most trusted people in the land allegedly took bribes and betrayed their public duty.
Even if it's one judge who sells justice, justice sold is the most dangerous commodity on earth.
Anas Aremeyaw Anas is Africa's most famous undercover reporter. For 20 years, he's been a masked crusader against corruption. A few weeks ago, he unveiled his most audacious operation yet.
This is the biggest scandal in the history of our country.
Almost 200 people were caught up in the judicial scandal, sending shockwaves through the legal system.
There should be a new mindset, which is, I'm not going to succumb to such appalling acts of corruption. Not only because I might be caught, but because it's appalling.
Name, shame, and jail.
The saga threatens to bring down many powerful figures by shining a light on corruption.
Sometimes it takes a spark, just a spark, and I think Anas has provided that spark for the whole edifice to blow up.
Anas Aremeyaw Anas is Ghana's best known but least recognizable journalist. He's been undercover for nearly 20 years. He never identifies himself on camera, preferring to shield his face, wear wigs and hide under a hat. 2 months ago, news started to leak about his latest and most important investigation so far. Al Jazeera's been recording what happened. Anas's targets were the judges and officials who run the country's courts, from humble magistrates to powerful High Court justices. He set out to show that justice was for sale, but even he was surprised at how deep the apparent corruption went and how hard it would be to expose.
Thank you very much.
It's early September, and Anas is briefing an old friend who runs a Ghanaian newspaper group.
At the end of the investigations, we got 34 judges.
Huh?
34, yes. And 146 judicial staff.
34.
34
How many judges are in Ghana?
Yeah. And the sad aspect is that some of these judges are judges we hold in high esteem.
Whoa.
For example, Ajet Nassam. Issue. He's caught on tape taking bribes. So you can imagine that the implications are huge for the country.
Wow.
Ajet Nassam is one of Ghana's most senior judges, sitting in the High Court and dealing with the most important cases. When Anas's undercover team came across him, he was trying 4 men. They were accused of stealing over $150,000 from Ghana's national oil company. To get access to a judge like this, they first had to win over his clerk, in this case, a man called Gabriel.
Gabriel played the middleman's role. He would lead us to the judge. Of course, as you can see, we give him his share, not much, but he takes it.
Anas wanted to find out whether they could pay to get one of the accused off. The bung to the clerk worked. He got them in to see the judge. The amount of money needed to tempt senior judges like this is not small. Anas says that this judge wanted around $3,000, more than a month's salary for a High Court justice.
We spoke to him about the case, we gave him the narration, and then he demanded that the money be given to him. So that's what you can see. Here is the money that has been given to Gabriel, and Gabriel is passing it on to him.
8,000 CDs handed over, but the judge wants to make sure he gets a further amount. He asks to meet the defendant in person, to sort out the paperwork.
Maybe by 10 o'clock, thank you. Okay. But since you said 10, it should be 10.
10, yes, my love.
After the money is finally handed over, the lucky defendant walks free. His 3 co-accused all get long sentences. As the oil company is state-owned, it's the people of Ghana who've just lost out. It's this kind of corruption which provides fertile ground for campaigning journalists like Kwesi Pratt, the award-winning newspaper editor.
Corruption affects everything. You understand? It affects everything. First of all, enormous resources are being taken out of the state coffers, enormous resources are being taken out of private coffers and so on, and they're ending up where they ought not to be. If there's corruption in the award of contracts, it means that the contractors are going to do a shoddy job. You know, if there is corruption, you know, in the admission of students, it means that the quality of students who are going to end up as engineers and so on will be defective.
With huge natural resources, including oil, Ghana should be one of Africa's powerhouse economies, but it's not. A point not lost on Ghana's most influential citizen.
Corruption does not only distort development, it deprives the poor of services. And not only does it deprive the poor of services, when the corrupt get away with it and there are no sanctions, you are creating a society that could be rotten to the core.
After 2 years undercover, Anas and his Tiger Eye investigative team went public in September. The decision would provoke huge controversy, death threats, and a sometimes uncomfortable spotlight on their own methods. Among the first to hear what had been going on was Ghana's president, John Mahama.
Mr. President, there's a problem on our hands. What is the problem? The judiciary. Then he bowed down his head. Deep thinking. Wow. So how many? 34.
Anas also briefed Ghana's most senior judge, the Chief Justice, Georgina Wood.
She asked, how long is this meeting going to take? Well, we'll finish talking in about maybe 20 minutes. We're there for 2.5 hours.
Just a few days later, the Chief Justice suspended 22 junior judges and began impeachment proceedings against 12 more senior ones. Anas was told by the president that his evidence would be vital, but he was warned he'd be in for a tough time.
He asked me, am I prepared to subject myself to that scrutiny and that system, because it's not going to be comfortable. I said, Mr. President, I can put my life on the evidence I have. With no concern for the environment.
As an undercover journalist, Anas has been laying his life on the line for nearly 20 years.
I am going undercover to find out who is behind this illegal business and how they are getting away with it.
Initially a newspaper journalist, his undercover techniques made him a television natural.
What's needed is government regulation and enforcement to protect our children, our environment, and our future.
He'd investigate corruption of all kinds. No subject was off limits. Anas was singled out for his campaigning journalism by the US president when he came to Ghana in 2009.
Today I will focus on 4 areas that are critical to the future of Africa and the entire developing world: democracy, opportunity, health, and the peaceful resolution of conflict. We see that spirit in courageous journalists like Anas, Arimea Anas, who risked his life to report the truth.
And if you do stories that are of universal import and attention, like investigative exploits into human trafficking, the Chinese mafia sex thing, dealing with kids, exploiting kids. I mean, if you do that kind of story, that has international impact. I'm not surprised a US president will recognize that.
Anas honed his forensic techniques further by qualifying as a lawyer. But it was while studying the law that he began to focus on the hidden problem of judicial corruption.
If you look at reports, look at the Ghana Integrity Initiative reports, look at the US Department of State report, Afrobarometer report, always cited the judiciary as having issues and challenges of corruption. I felt embarrassed as an undercover journalist that we only left it at the realm of speculation and that we couldn't put flesh and substance to those issues.
Anas spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a network of undercover agents aiming to bribe judges and court officials in every region of Ghana. Cases they would target included family disputes, fraud, armed robbery, and rape. In fact, any case up to and including murder. At first, the judges seemed to resist the chance of extra funds.
For the first 6 months, it was zilch. There was no results coming. Nothing. Nobody was taking the bait. When I spoke to my team, it was almost like, I recall one team member telling our boss, but you knew that there was nothing there. Why did you say we should start it? And I felt embarrassed.
Worse still, 12 of the judges the investigators from Tiger Eye approached turned down the bribes. And some of them even threatened to report the journalists to the police for attempted bribery. Could it be that Ghana's judges were more honest than rumours suggested? Perhaps not. Anas's team slowly realised what was wrong. They needed to spend longer hanging around courts until their faces became familiar.
Sometimes we were just tagging along with relatives and not just saying anything, but we are just sitting in the court. And we always sit at a place that the judge's eye open on you when he raises his head. So as soon as you do that beautiful visit, the judge looks at your face and thinks that, okay, this guy is familiar in my court.
In Tamale, northern Ghana, Anas's investigators went to see if they could influence the outcome of a rape case. It was an appeal hearing. The 29-year-old defendant wanted to reverse a conviction for raping an underage girl. Anas's team went to plead for the young man.
This is Ansuji Abo. Ansuji Abo is a well-respected High Court judge in Tamale, the northern region. So the driver then led us to his house that morning, and we met him. And as you can see, that's him.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you, sir.
The defendant is appealing because he claims the girl was actually 16 at the time. Judge Ansor Giabor shouldn't be meeting like this, but he appears willing to listen. He suggests that the girl's father should come to court to say she wasn't really underage.
To tell him he should not fear. I will not do anything to him. He shouldn't fear. All judge I want to find out is, yes, this is maybe like an old man. This is old man. That I make that document that my daughter is 16 years.
16 years. 10 months.
That's all what I will ask him.
Okay, my lord.
So he should not fear that he will come and maybe you will have trouble.
The judge is helping us so that the guy can walk free. So we take the money and then we hand it over.
The judge is anxious nobody should know that he accepted the cash.
I beg you, and sit down. Let this thing remain this way.
Okay, my lord, okay.
This is Ansuji Abo, and this is his clerk who was not part of the incident. This was the day of judgment, and he looked very good that day. And he freed this guy. This was after we had paid 2,000 Ghana cedis to him. We therefore decided to go back to him.
Anas's team take a traditional gift, bags of yams and more cash.
As you can see, here is he collecting the money that we were giving him.
The convicted rapist was freed from a 10-year sentence with hard labour to return home to the girl's neighbourhood as a result of Anas's intervention. Not everybody agrees with Anas's methods, not even some from his own journalistic community.
Journalists are not supposed to be acting as intelligence agents. We are not. Our role is substantially different from undercover CIA agents and undercover MI5 agents and so on. We investigate, but our methods are also different, you know. Now you have Anas Aremeyaw Anas doing something which is recognized by the society as being in interest and good and so on. But the methods are not journalistic.
But Anas is unashamed about his methods and believes the ends justify the means.
My journalism is a product of the society. Look, perhaps when you are in America and you do a story, we have agencies, strong institutions who would get up and ensure that they follow up and put those bad guys behind bars. Here in developing nations, it is not so.
In the first week of September, news of Anas's sting operation against the nation's judges has begun leaking out.
Chief Justice suspends 22 judges and magistrates.
A corrupt judge is worse than an armed robber.
The response is overwhelmingly positive. Newspapers are full of it. TV and radio talk shows can't get enough either.
There is indeed ocular proof where these ladies and gentlemen are actually filmed.
But a few people are very unhappy. A direct threat to Anas's life has been made to an Accra radio station. Anas says he's not worried.
Well, I have gone through it over the years, and I just know their style. I mean, why would you threaten someone without mentioning your name? It's a coward. That's how I take them to be. And like I said, my point has always been that it's a diversionary tactic.
Anas might make light of the threat, but he's been persuaded to accept 24-hour police protection and send his wife and family abroad. His guard, Aga, is inside the car with him.
No, I have security. I have security. Somebody doesn't want me to go. He says I shouldn't go, and that there could be a sniper. Aga, is your gun there?
Anas has prepared an official petition to the Chief Justice to discipline the judges who he caught accepting cash, and is on his way to testify to the Judicial Council Committee hearing against the wayward judges. He can give evidence knowing that he has immunity from prosecution. For bribing judges is normally a serious criminal offence, but the Attorney General has declared Anas a whistleblower, which means he's protected from the consequences. It took 2 years for Anas's team to collect 500 hours of undercover footage showing almost 180 judges and officials accepting cash and other gifts.
It was an epic anti-corruption assignment.
Film editors have cut the material down into a blockbuster 3-hour documentary, which Anas wants to show to as many people as possible. He's arranged a series of free screenings at Accra's conference centre. Its title is suitably epic, Ghana in the Eyes of God. It's a move that will upset his opponents and spark a legal battle. John Enda Bugri is one of a number of lawyers acting for the judges named and shamed in the film. He opposes the screening.
If in Ghana a judge is taking money in order to be influenced in his work, he probably will go to jail as well. But in Britain, you will have to establish it, not by going to some cinema house and showing, but going to a court of competent jurisdiction and making out your case. He's trying to unmask, corruption and malfeasance in the society. That's commendable. But it depends on the extent to which you take this if in the process you are trampling upon the rights of others.
Give me F. That's F.
It's the day before the screening is due. Tickets have already been issued to leading politicians, lawyers, clergy and foreign diplomats.
Give me J. Give me E flat.
One of Anas's friends, a comedian called Funny Face, is doing an impromptu performance at Accra's biggest shopping mall. He's drumming up publicity for the film.
I'm here, we're just giving away 500 free tickets for people to come watch Anas undercover video of the judicial corruption, free tickets so they can come and watch how people take money to jail people. Yes, wicked people.
Where's my like this? Now, flapping. Chicken, chicken, chicken.
Aba, kawa. What is on there, Koba? 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 Huh? Over there, let's go, no. Wait, shut your hand. Be in a one eye. Hey, wait, hey, hey. Why are you holding my gun? Everybody will get some fun and
As the crowd scramble for the tickets, what they don't know is that the film may not be shown after all. A campaign to stop it is gathering pace. Lawyers acting for the judges who feature in the documentary are trying to get last-minute legal injunctions. Anas has powerful people on his side. One of them rings in from Geneva.
Oh, this is Kofi Annan. How are you?
I'm fine, sir. This is a surprise call.
I know. I'm calling from Geneva.
Thank you so much.
It's very important. It's good for the nation. It's good governance. And corruption has really undermined our continent. I just wanted to say bravo, well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. That was Kofi Annan. My conversation with him gives me a lot of courage. It tells me that I'm not alone.
Anas is smuggled into the conference centre where the screening is due the following day. Lawyers for the judges are making a last-ditch attempt to stop the show and are trying to track him down with a writ. Coincidentally, this is the same hall where years before, President Obama had singled him out for his work.
We see that spirit in courageous journalists like Anas, who risked his life to report the truth.
The screening may be in real doubt, but Anas is hoping he'll still be a national hero at this time tomorrow. Anas Aramea Anas's controversial documentary is going ahead, even though the judges he's naming are trying to get it stopped.
Hey! Yeah, I would like to go and see what is really going on.
The place is not ready. We are putting it up. So please stay outside and we'll be with you.
Thousands of people have been given free tickets to see the undercover epic, which features 34 judges filmed allegedly accepting bribes.
People from all walks of life joined long queues earlier at the conference center to catch a glimpse of the video.
A police convoy escorts Anas's car because he's received several death threats. Anas's car has hit rush hour traffic and he's carrying the only copy of the film. Lawyers acting for the judges failed to get their writ against Anas. But the screening is still in doubt, because now they're trying to injunct this conference centre instead.
We are not yet out of the woods, but the will of the people is prevailing, and that makes me happy.
Because of fears for his safety, Anas is meant to be going through the side, but decides to go through the front. Despite his unusual clothing, few people seem to have spotted the creator of tonight's film.
It's being talked about, and people are trying to describe how the whole thing took place, but we're going to be given an opportunity to see what it is like. Yeah, so I'm very excited.
People have been alleged about corruption here and there, and people also end up without any proper judgment and those things. So we can see for ourselves what really goes on behind the closed doors.
Those found culpable must bow their heads in shame. The disgrace befalling our nation, our bench, and our legal profession through the exposures should give all of us a very rude shock. No doubt, this is the biggest scandal in the history of our country.
In most investigations, Tiger Eye have relied on a key organ of state to finish off our three-point mandate of name, shame, and jail.
Power is not theirs. Power is in the people. If they know that, then they will continue to be modest.
People must have confidence.
If we have that perception with evidence, hardcore evidence, to prove that the judicial system is corrupt, where are we going as a country? We have a serious problem at our hands. And then some people will be thinking that there's no need to practice democracy in this country again.
A leading member of the government who's seen the film gives Anas's techniques a clean bill of health.
I think that those who argue on issues of whether this was a sting operation or whether he set people up or whether he instigated people, or as you're saying, by giving money to judges, he was bribing them. But I think he made it clear at the beginning of the case that he was doing this for a particular purpose.
The Dutch ambassador also believes Anas's sting is justified.
Well, it is devastating and shocking what we saw today.
What do you think has happened as a result of what you see?
Well, obviously the judiciary needs a complete overhaul to restore confidence.
Shortly after this, the complex is stormed by thousands of people who want to see the second showing. In all, 6,000 people will see these free screenings.
Anas tape screened, pastors, diplomats, soldiers queued to watch the scandal of the century. Indeed, that they looked out of the window and they saw that in a long time, the conference center had not even gathered such a crowd before. And it was massive. The judge simply threw out the writs, saying that it was a matter of public interest and that he felt that the public had a right to know. And then there were people who had gone on to attack me, thinking that I didn't have any evidence or I didn't have enough evidence. After watching it, their tones had changed because now they were convinced that there's really an issue.
Not surprisingly, the judges and their advisors remain unconvinced, especially by some of the methods which have been employed.
Well, some of the ones I've seen, it amounts to entrapment. When you have woken a judge early in the morning at 5:30 a.m., when he is not properly dressed, and you sneak into his sitting room and you start engaging him in some conversation, and out of Ghanaian hospitality and respect, he answers questions, and then you put money on his table, and you go away and you go and publicize to the world that he is corrupt. I don't think I will agree with that.
To his favorite.
This excerpt from Anas's film shows one of his investigators meeting a judge's court clerk at a guest house.
we came across this court clerk. He believed in the power of only one currency, hot and instant sex.
The investigator, known as one of Anas's Spice Girls, later talked us through what happened.
He took me to the guest house. He kept on telling me he was going to help me see the judge. Yeah. He was trying to have sex with me. He was expecting me to do it as well, but the plan was not to do it. Okay, so I was there in the room with him for about 30 minutes. Then I just got a phone call from one of my colleagues, and I told him that I have to go because they needed me at.
This morning's papers have also picked up on the Spice Girls story.
So it's Sex for Justice, court clerk busted in Anas video. It's interesting. Newspapers are self-filtering and feeding on the substantive stories. So here was this court clerk and one of our Spice Girls, and he demanded that he wanted sex before he could take us to a judge.
You've actually set a honey trap there, Clark. What do you say about that?
Well, the details are there. The facts are there. Who proposes that they should go to a hotel? It is the clerk himself who does that. Nobody forces anybody on anybody.
The judge in these headlines has been leading the fight back against Anas. Peter Derry, a very senior judge, was filmed during the trial of a man charged with possessing more than 50 parcels of cannabis. The undercover expose shines a light on the shadowy world of the court official. Nearly 150 of them would get caught up in the saga.
This is Justice Derry. He's one of the judges who have really tormented me in this investigation. He's filed many suits trying to stop me. This is Mayor. He's a fixer to Justice Derry. And we met him, and then we had quick conversations with him about how we wanted to influence Justice Derry in a narcotic case. He took a share of the money, as you can see, and then set up a good meeting between us and Justice Derry. He asked for a lot of money for Justice Derry. He actually said that normally it's 10,000 plus when you're dealing with the likes of Justice Derry because he's a big judge. So Mayor then takes us to the house of Justice Derry. This is Justice Derry and this is Mayor. But here is Mayor giving the money to Justice Derry. It was a very quick meeting because Mayor didn't want anything to be discussed.
There was a follow-up meeting and a more unconventional bribe.
And this was the goods that we went and gave him on that fateful day.
One of Anas's investigators is doing the deal.
I brought the gold.
Did he call you?
Well, today he called me more than 20 times.
The conversation refers to the judge's fixer, Mayor, who has been handling the deal.
So he has taken
and then
9,000.
He has taken 9,000, leaving you only 5,000 plus this 1,000 I just got.
Yeah. No, that's why he was resisting that he didn't want you to get the tax.
Okay, thank you, my lord.
So Derry has just realized now that he's been ripped off by his clerk. This is the money. And then he put it on his table.
The investigator, though, wants to know whether the bribe will get the accused off.
But is he going to set free?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay, thank you.
It was shocking. This was a narcotic case. And because of the money, you set him free?
Accra Central Court Complex is where the judges and their lawyers get to fully explain their actions. Most days, Anas is required to attend too.
And then you choose your beat, which one?
He's giving evidence in disguise, even though some of his opponents object. Anas also believes that the media are using the opportunity to work out what he really looks like. So today he's asking 2 of his colleagues to dress up in order to deceive them. The hearings have taken another unusual twist.
The reactions have been pretty funny and interesting.
One judge even claimed he'd been dealing not with Anas, but with a ghost.
The judge said that when I entered there and I sat with him and I gave him the money and he collected it, suddenly I disappeared from the chair. And then when he walked out, he saw a white sheep or goat. It's a ridiculous defense, but hey, this is Africa.
Some of the judges have not made it to the hearings at all because they've gone off sick. Judge Quist is one of these. Anas's run-in with Quist will show the full extent of the power that Ghana's judges have over court cases, no matter how serious they are or how long they've lasted. This case resulted from an armed robbery in 2007 at this petrol station. The terrifying nighttime attack has never been forgotten by the victim.
It was February, the 2nd, when a little guy came. He wanted to buy fuel. So he came to attack me, and they pushed me down. They were all holding pistols, locally made pistols. So they forced me to go and then call the girls. Everybody lie flat with your face, lie on ground. After doing everything, then the commander ordered the guards to kill me. The one who put one on his leg, just this place, pressing my face down. Then all the girls start crying. They were mentioning, oh, Mr. Quay, oh, Mr. Quay, they were crying, oh, Mr. Quay, they were all crying.
It took 8 years for the attacker to face justice. He came up before Judge Quist earlier this year.
Quist is a very popular judge here in Ghana, and he sat on many criminal cases. In fact, I have even personally been before Quist before, and Chata is his clerk. So he makes a point. Tell me, he mentioned 10,000, but you know these people. So when we met him, he also then decided to call the judge, who is Quist, to come. We have just entered the judge's car.
Oh, I'm pleading on his behalf.
So, my lord, you watching how was my lord? What happened? And then...
Well, I'll try my best to let you know.
Thank you, sir.
The investigator hands over about $1,000 in local currency, but it's only a part payment.
Don't have the police come to here. Thank you, sir.
How much is it?
It's for...
Pardon?
4,000, sir. So, please, I'm begging you.
I'll get him off. I'll get him off the hook on Friday. But everything will depend on you.
I understand.
So we'll see you before Friday.
Okay, nice. Thank you.
Anas's investigator makes a further meeting, but he still hasn't come with the full balance.
Let me apologize for delaying everything.
Okay. You get the remainder. Bring it tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning, yes.
The judge appears to be getting increasingly annoyed because once again he is not getting the full amount.
Otherwise tomorrow I will not deliver. First thing tomorrow morning. Okay?
Tomorrow has come. We are back into Justice Quist's car again. And this is a 6,000 cedis that we're passing to him. And he's taking the money, he's looking at it. And then he will ask, how much is it? Then we'll tell him how much it was.
The final payment was made on the same day that the judge freed the accused. In fact, the deal held up the start of the day's court proceedings.
Court processes usually begin from 8:30 to 9. On this day, it was Getting to 11 a.m., Quist was still not here because we had delayed him. Whilst he came to take the bribe, today is the day he's going to really do the job, the bidding, what we've asked him to do. And lo and behold, he then decided to give the judgment. He basically read 3-4 lines, and that was it. A case that had dragged on for 5 good years. Justice Quist ended up even releasing a self-confessed armed robber.
What do you think about the judge taking a bribe?
Yes, I think that those armed robbers should be rearrested. I think they should be rearrested. I've been going to the court all the time. I've been going to the court. I went about 4 or 5 times, and like I say, my life is at risk. Because the armed robbers came when they were wearing masks. You see, it means they know me, I don't know them.
Newly qualified graduates are called to the bar in Ghana. This is a joyful occasion, but Anas's expose has also cast a major cloud over the proceedings. The saga has not impressed the Chief Justice.
You are graduating at a time in our legal history when more than ever the perception of the public on the profession is largely negative. Allegations of bribery and corruption in the judiciary and the legal profession in general is at an all-time high, and confidence possibly at an all-time low.
The Chief Justice's firm message to the young lawyers is one that is resonating around the world.
When you have 34 judges who are caught on tape with a prima facie evidence that they may have taken bribes, it's an indication that there's something hopelessly wrong with the system. You cannot afford to have a judiciary in a country like Ghana that is not reliable, that is not dependent, that people have no confidence in.
The result of this should be that those who have been proved to be corrupt should be dealt with, extracted from the system, and there should be going forward safeguards put in place and a new mindset, which is, I'm not going to succumb to such appalling acts of corruption. Not only because I might be caught, but because it's appalling.
The legal investigation has not gone entirely Anas's way. 7 of the senior judges were suspended in early October, but one lower court judge is no longer being investigated because of issues with some of the evidence. There are wider concerns too, that Anas's expose has backfired on the criminal justice system.
The real disaster of this investigation is the damage to the confidence in the judicial system. And there are already members of the public going onto social media and saying, I had a case before that judge, and the result was an extremely odd one. I wasn't happy with the result. And inevitably, they're going to be thinking about what they can do to have that case retried.
Anas's expose has also caused concern by allowing some convicted criminals to go free.
And it already is being said that it is extremely reckless to release criminal suspects into society in order to prove the point of this investigation. And one will have to leave it to society to be the ultimate judge on that.
Nevertheless, Anas believes that his expose of the judicial system can only benefit his country.
It's difficult to go with the perception or the feel that my purpose is to bring down the country. I believe in bringing down sections or the dishonest ones. What we are doing is to build a new caucus of good and decent judges who carry this flag, or the beautiful flag of Ghana, aloft.
Anas wanted his film shown right across the country, but in early October, lawyers for the judges got a major screening stopped outside the capital. Some of the judges now want to see him prosecuted for contempt of court for showing the film in the first place.
He has set out to damage people's interests damage people's image, not in accordance with the law. And we are asking the law to call him to order. It is left to the law to decide whether he should be locked up.
The search for revenge has started already. When judges of the High Court go to court and file contempt proceedings, and I suspect that a lot more cases will be brought against him.
Ghana's politicians have so far remained largely silent. In Europe, the president of Ghana faced questions about the scandal. In his only public response to the event so far, Ghana President John Mahama said that Anassa's work was a reflection of institutional weakness that we need to work on to make sure we have stronger institutions. He also had a more positive message, saying the suspensions of judges showed the robustness of the system, pointing out that there were at least 10 judges whose integrity was intact who threatened to call the police. Judges and court officials featured in this film were approached for comment, but they were unable to participate until legal proceedings are over. Anas knows that his life will never be easy.
I've made a lot of enemies. And if you want to know, one of the secrets of my successes is that I am very unpredictable. The people who come after me day and night are unable to tell where my weakness is.
The number of Anas's enemies is bound to increase. He's already started work on a fresh series of corruption investigations. And he'll be relying on some of the simpler things in his life to give him the strength to continue.
I do reggae because it inspires me whenever I'm getting onto any work. In times of troubles, you can rely on it and the inspiration that it comes along with.
Anas's powerful supporters abroad believe that his expose is a game changer for Africa and beyond.
Sometimes it takes a spark, just a spark. And I think Anas has provided that spark for the whole edifice to blow up, for people to wake up and say, no more, something has to be done.